What goes up must come down. Always share the love you got with a friend. Automatic freestyle, remote control. The lyrics, the match your soul. Automatic freestyle, remote control. The lyrics, the match your soul. Said it was I, James preaching. And my brother Dilly Dolly. I said it gone down the alley. Don't we smoke up the collie. And we not deal with the folly. I, James preacher, and my brother Dilly Dolly, I would say. Dan calls saying that and pain of a love supreme. Dan calls saying that and pain of a love supreme.
A man with a message. Big Youth arrived on the music scene in the wake of U-Roy, Dennis Alcapone, and I-Roy, but quickly established his own style, threatening to eclipse them all. The consummate cultural toaster, the DJ ruled the dance halls across the 70s, and although his career flagged in the next decade, he returned with a vengeance in the 90s. And continues to have an impact on both his own nation and beyond. Born in Kingston, Jamaica, on April 19, 1949, Manley Augustus Buchanan had his moniker long before he had picked up a mic. He was named Big Youth by his co-workers at the Kingston Sheraton Hotel, where the tall teen was employed as a mechanic. Initially, he toasted to himself the DJing equivalent of air guitar, but eventually he took the chance of picking up the mic at a few parties. The enthusiastic response he received prodded him to perform at dances, and by the late 60s, he had a small, but avid following. This fan base swiftly grew, and as the new decade arrived, Big Youth was now DJing regularly at Lord Tipperton's sound system, quickly becoming the top DJ for the outfit. By this point, U-Roy, Alcapone, and I-Roy had already made their vinyl debuts, but Big Youth would wait another year, finally releasing his first single in January 1972. He cut Movie Man for African Museum, Errol Dunkley and Gregory Isaacs' label, and the song fittingly utilized the rhythm to Dunkley's own Movie Star. Surprisingly, the single was barely noticed. Other producers had no better luck. The best Big Youth, also known as Black Cindy, cut with Jimmy Radway, sank without a trace. Lee Perry did no better with Moving, a version of the Wailers' Keep On Moving. Producer Phil Pratt thought for sure his two cuts were chartward bound, but both tell it black. A version of Dennis Brown's cover of Black Magic Woman, and Phil Pratt Thing, a sublime version of Derek Harriot's Riding for a Fall, followed its predecessors into oblivion. Even Fire Bun, produced by Nini Holness over his own smash Blood and Fire rhythm, failed to ignite the Jamaican buying public. The drought was finally broken by a young, just out of his teens, up-and-coming producer, Gussie Clarke. For The Killer single, he had the DJ toast over the rootsy Augustus Pablo number, and the result was magnificent. The pair followed it up with Tipperton Rocking, another major hit. Big Youth was now in demand. The ever-innovative producer Keith Hudson dragged a motorcycle into the studio to capture its revving engine for S.90 Skank, a tribute to the popular Honda motorcycle, and roared Big Youth to the top of the Jamaican chart. Their follow-up, Can You Keep a Secret, a duet between the toaster and his singing producer, did almost as well. In between times, Big Youth cut a pair of songs for Glenn Brown, Come Into My Parlor, and Opportunity Rocks, the latter employing the popular Dirty Harry rhythm. Both were actually recorded the same day as S.90 Skank. That same week, the DJ also cut a quartet of songs for Prince Buster, Lego Beast, Cain and Abel, Leave Your Squeng, a version of Get Ready, and Chi Chi Runs cut over the rhythm of John Holt's Rain from the Skies. That latter track titled A Various Artists compilation that featured the DJ, a young acolyte, Little Youth, a trio of top vocalists, Alton Ellis, John Holt, and Dennis Brown. All produced by Prince Buster. Big Youth's own debut album, Screaming Target, arrived in 1973. Produced by Gussie Clarke, the album was stuffed with classic rhythms from the likes of Gregory Isaacs and Lloyd Parks, and filled with hits as well, including the magnificent title track. The DJ seemed to have now glued himself to the chart, and during that year, 4 of his songs, including Screaming Target, a version of Casey White's No No No, and Buster's Chi Chi Run. The Derek Harriott produced Cool Breeze, and the Joe Gibbs produced A So We Stay, a version of Dennis Brown's Money in My Pocket, sat proudly on the Jamaican Top 20 for the entire year. Gibbs notched up a total of 3 hits with Big Youth in 1973, along with the aforementioned single. There was also Chucky No Lucky, and the topical Foreman vs. Frazier. From boxing bouts to The Fact of Life, a hit cut for Sonia Pottinger, Big Youth was the tops on any topic. He'd matured swiftly, from a barely understandable mumbler who exhorted the crowds with typical U-Roy or Al Capone-esque QE exhortations to a more relaxed conversational style. And it was this very ease of delivery, relaxed but so perfectly timed to the rhythms, that had entranced the nation. In 1974, Big Youth launched his own label, Negusa Negus. It was later followed by a second, Augustus Buchanan. The former's name was particularly telling and is Amharic, the Ethiopian language for King of Kings. It announced a further shift in the DJ's performance toward a full-on cultural chant to toaster. Negusa Negus debuted with a quartet of the DJ's singles, Hot Cross Bun, Mr. Bunny, Children Children, and most spectacularly of all, Streets in Africa. This latter was a cover of War's The World is a Ghetto, and features Dennis Brown backed by the equally sonorous tones of the Heptones. Big Youth released his second album this same year, Reggae Phenomenon, and it was as phenomenal as its title suggested. It featured new songs, all chart-bound, remakes of earlier cuts, and smash hits like the title cut, another version of Dennis Brown's Money in My Pocket, Dread in a Babylon, and Natty Dread No Jester, a version of the Paragon's Only a Smile. And the DJ's phenomenal chart success continued with producer after producer. Glenn Brown scored with Dubby Attack, Tony Robinson oversaw The Mighty House of Dreadlocks, and Mammy Hot and Daddy Cold. Buddy Davidson produced Johnny Dead, while Yabby You sat behind the desk for the most seminal of them all, Yabby Youth, the first of several versions the DJ would cut over the Conquering Lion rhythm. Big Youth would again pair up with Dennis Brown for the Harry J. produced Wild Goose Chase. Niney Holness liked what he heard and kept the duo together for his Ride On Ride On. The two would go on to record a stunning version of Bob Marley's Get Up Stand Up. Marley's version wasn't alone. Besides toasting over classic rocksteady rhythms, Big Youth was now increasingly utilizing heavier roots rhythms. Most notable was I Pray Thee, a version of the Abyssinians' Satara Masagana, which was another seminal smash hit. And the DJ also cut a version of Burning Spear's classic, Marcus Garvey. Two more Wailers versions also appeared around this time, Marley's Craven Choke Puppy, and Bunny Wailer's Bide Up became, respectively, Craven version, and Black on Black. Dreadlocks Dread in 1975, the Dreadlocks Dread album appeared, a seminal album overseen by Prince Tony Robinson and split between Big Youth's toasts and instrumental dubs. Accompanied by Skin, Flesh and Bones Band, the album remains a masterpiece of dread roots and provocative cultural toasts. Dreadlocks Dread had a massive impact on the UK, where it was picked up by the Click label and prompted Big Youth to tour there the following year. 1976 brought two albums in its wake, Natty Cultural Dread and Hit the Road Jack, both self-produced by a self-confident Big Youth at the peak of his powers. Again, the albums featured a clutch of Jamaican smashers, 10 Against 1, and Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, amongst them, and new numbers equally biting at the chart bit. Interestingly enough, Natty Cultural Dread also boasts Every Nigger is a Star, backed by the I3s making their recording debut. Also featured as some of Big Youth's surprising covers. In the past, he'd version Motown hits, Gene Pitney, Al Green, and Otis Redding, Doc of the Bay, of course. Now along with the title track there was even, If I Had a Hammer. 1977 brought the masterful 4/7s, a clever version of Culture's 2/7s clash. Produced by Niney Holness. The pair followed up with the provocative 6 Dead, 19 Gone to Jail. Having now signed to the Frontline label in the UK, Big Youth's debut album for the Virgin subsidiary was 1978's Isaiah First Prophet of Old, a fiercely roots record produced by D. Russell. The DJ also had a cameo role in the movie Rockers. He's absolutely unmistakable, stepping out of a flash car and flashing a smile that shows off his front teeth embedded with red, yellow, and green jewels, as his long dreads whip around his face. But behind these eye-catching trappings was a thoughtful and thought-provoking DJ, as his records prove time and time again. 1978 also saw the release of the Green Bay Killers' single, a fierce diatribe on the death of a group of Rastafarians at the hands of the Jamaican army. Perhaps Big Youth was now seen as too radical for Virgin, and the label chose not to release the DJ's next two albums, Progress and Rock Holy. Nor did they pick up on the former's dub companion, the excellent Reggae G.I. Dem dub, remixed by the up-and-coming master Sylvan Morris. However, the Toasters' grip on Jamaica was also beginning to loosen, and a new generation of chatterers were beginning to come to the fore. Some great Big Youth continued to record, but no longer ruled the charts, and most of his singles were now self-produced and released through his own labels. The Heartbeat labels Some Great Big Youth collects up many of these late 70s, early 80s material. The label's follow-up collection, The Chanting Dread in a Fine Style, concentrates on earlier Nagusa Nagas singles. Manifestation. The increasing violence in the dance halls prompted him back into the studio in 1982 for No War in the Dance cut for producer Lloyd Parks. He proved his popularity wasn't totally gone, with a steaming, hits-filled set at Reggae Sunsplash before an adoring audience that summer, giving a repeat performance the following year. And again in 1987. In 1985, Big Youth released a surprising new album, A Luta Continua, where he transformed from toaster to singer and roots Rasta to jazzman, accompanied by Jamaican jazz hero Herbie Miller. However, 1988's Manifestation found the DJ regaining his footing, for a roots-drenched set split between excellent toasting and sub-quality singing. 2 years later, 90 Wholeness brought Big Youth back into the studio and cut the remarkable Chanting. The DJ also contributed a fierce, Free South Africa, to the One Man One Vote Artists album. Big Youth later performed at the Japan Splash Festival in Osaka, with his powerful set caught on 1991's Jamming in the House of Dread album. He reappeared with a vengeance at Reggae Sunsplash the following summer. With his profile now the highest it had been in years, Big Youth guest starred on Capleton's I Testament album, Matabaraka's Gathering of the Spirits, and Creation Rebels' Feet of a Green Planet. In 1995, the DJ released his own new album, Higher Grounds, overseen by Junior Reid. It was an intriguing mixture of R&B, reggae, and other styles. Another powerful set at Reggae Sunsplash was delivered the following year. The new millennium saw the release in the UK of the compilation Tell It Black, a 2-CD set that rounds up 31 seminal songs from 1972 to 1975. But that pales next to Natty Universal Dread, released by the British Blood and Fire label that same year. 3 albums and a total of 51 tracks brilliantly wrap up the best from 1973 to 1979 and include a clutch of Nagusa Nagast singles that have never been reissued.